You stand there and tell me I'll never be half the woman Vivian Sterling is? Very well. Ask your perfect Vivian to cover the $200,000 you owe. Because I'm done sending money. The air in the Sterling dining room didn't just go silent. It turned brittle, like old glass waiting to shatter. My son, Marcus, looked as though I'd physically struck him. His fiancée, Sienna, froze, a piece of asparagus hovering an inch from her mouth, her porcelain smile melting into pure white bewilderment. Before I tell you what happened next, the satisfying collapse of a tower of lies, I want you to settle in. This isn't a short tale. It's the story of a lifetime, distilled into one searing moment. I'm Eleanor Vance, and at 74, I thought I'd paid every debt life could ask for. But as you'll see, some prices are paid in dignity, not dollars. I'm 74 years old now, and the first time I felt like a thing Marcus wanted to hide was 10 years ago. He was 28, fresh out of business school, which I'd bled 3 minimum-wage jobs and every penny of my teacher's pension to secure, and he'd landed a job in Manhattan's gilded financial district. He came back to my small 2-bedroom home in Westchester one rainy Tuesday. It's a modest place, but it's mine, paid for with 26 years of elementary school teaching and another 10 as a part-time librarian after the state forced an early retirement. It was never much, but it was honest. Marcus didn't even take his coat off. He stood in the living room, a place he hadn't visited in 6 months, surveying my thrift store bookshelves and the worn floral armchair I love so much. "Mom," he started, his voice clipped and dry, "we need to have a serious talk about perception." "Perception? Is that a new stock, sweetheart?" I asked, reaching for a mug, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. He sighed, a dramatic, weary sound that told me he was dealing with an impossible burden, me. "I'm dating someone, a woman named Sienna. Her family is significant. Sterling Industries, Mom. They own Sterling Industries. They're old money, real money. And when she meets you, I need you to understand. You cannot mention the past." I set the mug down. "What past, Marcus? The one where I taught 2nd grade by day and stacked books by night so you could have a lunch that wasn't just a cheese sandwich?" His jaw tightened. "The poverty past, Mom, the struggle. The hand-me-down clothes. The fact that the only vacation we ever took was visiting Grandma's farm. They don't need to know we were, essentially, welfare poor." I swallowed, the coffee suddenly tasting like ash. "We were never on welfare, Marcus. I worked 3 jobs. I made sure we had everything you needed." "You don't get it," he hissed, his eyes blazing with a desperate, hungry ambition that chilled me to the bone. "This isn't about what we had. It's about what she thinks we had. This is my trajectory, my only shot at the life I deserve. If they think I grew up in a house with a mother who wears acrylic sweaters and works at a library, it ruins the narrative. You have to be vague, retired, discreetly successful, an early investor in some quiet, shrewd real estate." I looked at the stranger in the tailored suit, seeing not my son, but the reflection of his father, Richard Vance. Richard was all charm, all promise, and utterly devoid of responsibility. When Marcus was 10, Richard convinced me to refinance the house, the modest house I'd saved for with my first 5 years of teaching, for a sure-thing investment in a defunct mineral mine. When the bank called about the missing mortgage payment, Richard simply packed a duffel bag, left a note saying, "This family is holding back my potential," and vanished. I didn't just raise Marcus. I rebuilt our lives from the scorched earth Richard left behind. I taught during the day, tutored in the evening, and cleaned a local market on Sundays. I was poor, yes, but I was rich in tenacity. And now, my son was spitting on that history, calling it a shameful stain. "When do I meet the Sienna?" I asked, my voice dangerously even. "Soon. And Mom, please, just try to blend in." "For me?" I nodded. But in that moment, I knew I had to choose. My son's happiness based on a lie, or my own quiet dignity. For years, I chose the former. The relationship with Sienna moved fast, mostly because Marcus was running a frantic pace to secure his prize. Sienna Sterling was beautiful, polished, and surprisingly kind, but with the naive, sheltered kindness of someone who has never had to calculate the cost of a carton of milk. I played my part, At the first lunch, I was introduced as a recently retired educational consultant, allowing them to draw their own profitable conclusions. I never mentioned the diner or the library. I smiled, I nodded, and I let Marcus spin elaborate fictional tales about his family's modest but shrewd real estate portfolio. But the price of this charade wasn't just my self-respect. It was literal. It was 3 years after that initial conversation, late on a Friday night, when the real hammer fell. The phone rang at 11:45 p.m. "Mom, I need help. I need help right now, and you can't ask questions." Marcus's voice was raw, stripped of all its corporate polish. My heart immediately sank, knowing the confident facade had cracked. "Marcus, what is it? Are you hurt?" "No, I'm not hurt. But I will be. I need $200,000 by Monday. They'll break my legs if I don't pay." $200,000, a number so astronomical it felt like a foreign language. I sat on the edge of my bed, the old springs groaning under my weight. "Tell me everything, Marcus." Slow and straight. The truth once spilled was sickening. It wasn't a client theft like the transcript's initial plot, but a high-stakes, fraudulent investment scheme. He hadn't been stealing from clients directly yet, but he had borrowed a massive sum from a black market lender, people who are not patient, as he chillingly put it, to invest in a highly secretive, high-frequency trading platform, promising outlandish returns to them. It was a gamble to catapult himself into the elite bracket before the sterling engagement. The platform had failed spectacularly, and the men he owed were now calling in the debt with interest and threats. "It was supposed to be temporary, Mom." "Just until the deal closed. It was a sure thing," he sobbed. "There is no such thing as a sure thing, Marcus. Not when you're dealing with loan sharks. You are describing a path to prison and a broken body. But he was my son, the boy who used to cling to my skirt in the school hallway, the one I taught to tie his shoes and use his manners. No matter how monstrous his ambition had made him, I couldn't let him be destroyed. The next Monday was a blur. I leveraged everything. The small, comfortable house, my retirement nest egg, every last penny. I walked into the First National Bank, then the credit union, calmly discussing home equity lines of credit and personal loans secured by future Social Security checks. I, Eleanor Vance, the queen of the perfectly balanced budget, was now mortgaging my golden years to save a 30-year-old man from the consequences of his own moral bankruptcy. It took me 3 separate financial institutions, an emergency withdrawal from my deferred compensation fund, and a week of sleepless nights to raise the $200,000. The final monthly payment, $895 or 40% of my modest, fixed income, swallowed whole by his shame. When I handed him the cashier's checks, he wept and hugged me, swearing eternal gratitude. "You saved me, Mom. I'll make this right. I'll pay you back every cent. You'll never regret this." I didn't regret saving his life. I only regretted believing his promise. For 3 years, I kept the secret. And for 3 years, Marcus sent me exactly 5 payments, not the full $895, but a paltry $300 each time before they dried up completely. I cut every corner. I stopped driving unless absolutely necessary. My diet became rice and beans. My clothes became older. But Marcus? He thrived. He secured the engagement to Sienna, whose ring alone could have paid off my entire debt for a year. He moved into a luxury apartment downtown. His career, built on the appearance of success, thanks to my $200,000 fire sale, took off. The engagement party came and went, a flash of marble and crystal where I played the part of the discreetly wealthy retiree in a rented black dress. Then came the wedding precursor, the formal family dinner at the Sterling estate. The call from Marcus came with explicit, frantic instructions. 7 sharp. The jacket is required. Wear the black dress, but for God's sake, Mom, accessorize. Don't mention Queens, don't mention teaching, and especially don't mention the library. Then, the final, most galling instruction. Vivian, Mrs. Sterling, she's a business titan, you know. She might ask about your investment strategies, since I told them you were financially shrewd. Just deflect. Ask her about her company, or say you prefer to focus on blue-chip legacy holdings. Something simple, something rich-sounding. Marcus, I said, rubbing the bridge of my nose, suddenly exhausted by the sheer effort of maintaining his fiction. I have never made an investment in my life except for a handful of government bonds and the down payment on this house. Then lie. Just keep the narrative going. It's only a few hours, Mom. This is the most important night of my life. I hung up, staring out at the small garden I could no longer afford to maintain properly. I was $89,000 deep in debt for this man, a debt I was still paying every single month while he planned a $1 million wedding. He wasn't asking me to be discreet anymore. He was asking me to become an active character in his grand, fraudulent play. The Sterling estate was a mausoleum of wealth. It wasn't opulent. It was simply vast, suggesting centuries of stability. Vivian Sterling, Sienna's mother, met me at the door. She was impeccably tailored, her blonde hair precisely styled, with the sharp, intelligent eyes of a woman who built her empire one unforgiving merger at a time. "Eleanor, how lovely," Vivian said, offering a cool, firm hand. "Come in. We're just having aperitifs in the drawing room." Dinner was exquisite, served on paper-thin china by silent staff. Randall, Sienna's father, talked shop. Sienna talked excitedly about wedding details. Marcus, sitting opposite me, was the perfect picture of the successful, self-made son-in-law, confidently discussing market trends and philanthropy. Then came the moment, delivered, as always, with the precision of a surgical strike. Vivian turned to me, her eyes thoughtful. "Eleanor, David tells me you have quite the head for conservative investing, real estate, stable funds. He says you're his quiet advisor. What's your philosophy on risk mitigation in the current climate?" I felt Marcus's entire posture tense, willing me to lie. I took a sip of water, tasting the metallic tang of impending truth. "Oh, Vivian," I said, setting the glass down. "Marcus overstates my involvement. My philosophy is quite simple, really. It's based on what I call the paycheck-to-paycheck principle. Never spend money you don't have. Build a 3-month cushion. And never gamble the roof over your head." Vivian nodded, impressed by the principle, if not the actual application. "Sound, very sound, Eleanor. And you've certainly managed to build a phenomenal foundation for Marcus. It's refreshing to meet a parent who's done that." Marcus jumped in, desperate to lock down the narrative. "Mom's always been modest about her portfolio, Vivian. But she's so well situated. I often joke I'll never have to worry about taking care of her in her old age. She's far more financially secure than I am." It was the phrase that broke me. Never have to worry about taking care of her. The words, delivered with a casual laugh, were a direct slap in the face of my daily, agonizing financial reality. He was celebrating my financial sacrifice as his own good fortune. I put down my fork, the sound tiny but definitive in the cavernous dining room. "Actually, Marcus," I said, my voice cutting across the table, perfectly calm, "that is incorrect." The room went quiet. Randall Sterling lowered his wine glass. Sienna looked from her fiancé to me, her brow furrowed. "My mother likes to be modest," Marcus tried to interrupt, his smile brittle. "No, Marcus, I like to be truthful," I corrected, looking directly at Vivian. "Marcus's success is entirely his own. But to clarify his comments, I am not financially secure. I'm on a fixed income from my teaching pension and a part-time job, and far from not worrying about taking care of me, Marcus is the reason I have no financial security left at all." Sienna's eyes widened. "Eleanor, what are you saying?" I looked at my son, the entitled prince, who was now sweating visibly in his expensive suit. "Marcus, when you talk about my financial security, you are talking about the $895 that is deducted from my checking account every single month to cover the $200,000. Home equity loan I took out 3 years ago to pay off your black market trading debts." The silence that followed was absolute. A perfect vacuum of shock. "Mom, don't," Marcus shouted, his perfect facade finally shattering. He surged forward, leaning over the mahogany table, his ambition turning to rage. "You'll never be half the woman Vivian Sterling is. She built an empire. She understands success, not this martyrdom complex you've been carrying around for 30 years. I stood up, adjusting the collar of my borrowed black dress. The quiet dignity I had kept hidden for decades finally rose to the surface, a cool steel armor. "I am glad you brought up Vivian, Marcus. You're absolutely right. She built something real. I, on the other hand, spent the last 3 years cleaning up your reckless gamble while you entertained her daughter with lies and fantasies of inherited wealth." I turned back to Vivian and Randall. Ask your perfect son-in-law-to-be if he will be covering that loan then, because I'm not sending him another penny. The account is empty. The loans are paid. I am done enabling you." Sienna let out a small, strangled gasp and stumbled away from the table, tears instantly filling her eyes. "What debt, Marcus? What loans? You said you were self-made," Marcus stammered, his expensive education failing him completely. "It was a cash flow issue. A temporary mistake. Mom is exaggerating. Am I?" I pulled out my phone, opening the bank app, the screen showing the painful, repetitive history of the monthly $8.95 deduction. "I have the bank records. I have the mortgage papers. I can show you the dates, the amounts, and the note from the loan officer I spoke with on the day I mortgaged my entire future to keep his legs intact. Your son Vivian is a liar and a reckless gambler, and I, for once, am simply telling the truth." Marcus fled the dining room to pursue Sienna, but it was too late. The damage was done. The truth, blunt and heavy, had killed the illusion. I turned to leave, fully expecting to be escorted out by security, but Vivian Sterling stopped me. "Eleanor, wait!" Randall, silent and observant, left the room, closing the heavy double doors behind him. Vivian poured a measure of whiskey and pushed it towards me. "Sit down," she instructed, her voice devoid of anger, filled instead with a peculiar calculating respect. "How long were you paying that exactly?" 36 months, I replied, sinking back into the velvet chair. "It's why I came out of retirement to work at the library again. $895 a month takes a painful chunk out of a teacher's pension." Vivian stared at me, then at the phone I still held. "You identified a catastrophic financial crisis, secured capital from 3 different institutions, restructured the terms of your retirement to meet a crippling debt obligation, and maintained that payment for 3 years, all while managing on a sub-poverty fixed income. That, Eleanor, is not martyrdom. That is financial genius under extreme duress." I laughed, a dry, weary sound. "It's just desperation, Vivian." "Desperation is the mother of all invention," she countered, her lips curving into a thin, shark-like smile. "You know exactly what security means to an ordinary person because you have lost it and regained it repeatedly. You know what it takes to make an impossible budget work. My son was going to marry a man who was using his mother's sacrifice as proof of his own inherited worth. You just saved my daughter from marrying a parasite." Sienna broke off the engagement that night. I heard the muffled, furious argument in the foyer as I collected my coat, Marcus pleading, then shouting, then the sound of a door slamming. Vivian drove me home in her Rolls-Royce. "I'm not apologizing for my son, Eleanor. You did the right thing. He destroyed himself the moment he decided the image was more important than the woman who created him." She handed me a simple business card, not the corporate one, but a personal line. "I'm serious about that genius. Sterling Industries is considering a new venture, financial consulting for the unseen middle class, people who need real-world money management, not theoretical stock tips. I need someone who understands the paycheck-to-paycheck principle. I need you." It took me a month to decide. I researched Vivian Sterling's ethical record, her business structure, and her long-term vision. She was tough, but she was honest, and she offered me a partnership, Vance Sterling Financial Solutions, a new division focused on teaching people to manage debt, build credit, and secure their small, modest homes, the things that matter. Marcus called once. He was cold, defeated. "I hope you're happy, Mom. You've ruined everything. My career, my future, my reputation." "I didn't ruin anything, Marcus. You did that when you chose lies over me. I simply stopped being your cleaning service. I hope you use this time to figure out who you are when you can't buy a future." He hung up. The first official client for Vance Sterling Financial Solutions was a young woman, a single mother working 2 shifts as a nurse's aide, trying to budget for a down payment on a small apartment. Sitting across from her, explaining how to track every dollar, how to identify savings in utility costs, I felt a surge of purpose I hadn't felt since I taught a particularly stubborn second grader how to finally read. All the struggle, all the years of scrimping, it hadn't been shameful. It had been training. Vivian and I made an incredible team. She provided the infrastructure and business savvy. I provided the empathy and the practical, hard-won wisdom. Today, 3 years later, Vance Sterling Financial Solutions has helped hundreds of families build real security. I am 74 years old, and I am a partner in a multi-million-dollar financial firm. I am no longer just Eleanor Vance, the retired librarian. I am Eleanor Vance, the financial strategist. My son, Marcus, is working for a mid-level firm in Ohio, having failed to recover his career in New York. He is still paying off the original debt, the debt to me, on a manageable payment plan that I forced him into. And every month, when that final, mandatory $895 loan payment automatically deducts from my checking account, the one that paid off the debt I took on for him, I smile. It used to be a crippling burden, a symbol of his betrayal. Now, it's the final payment on the mortgage for my own life. I am Margaret Sullivan. No, I am Eleanor Vance, and I am finally living a life built on my own foundation. I learned that sometimes the only way to save the person you love is to stop saving them from the consequences of their own choices. Before I go, I want to say this. My old heart is full, knowing that some of you may have faced similar battles. If this story resonated with you, let me know. Subscribe if you want to keep hearing these quiet tales of defiance, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It warms this old heart to know where my words travel.